This is the Real Positive Girl podcast, and I am your host, Sabrina, and I'm here chatting with you about your emotions, your mental health struggles, how to take those first few steps towards becoming more vulnerable, more honest, and increasing your self-awareness, which is like one of the top keys right next to communication for everything that we should be working on the regular to become our best selves. And I talk about these things 2 times a week, new episodes every Monday and Friday at 3 a.m. PST. So welcome if you're new, and if you are not new, welcome on back, friends. I'm so glad you're here to listen to another episode. So today we're going to talk about your top toxic traits in relationships. That's right, your top toxic relationship traits. So just think about it. Like, you might not want to admit that you've had some of these traits. You currently struggle with some of these traits. Your partner has these traits, but we're going to talk about it because I've decided that with the podcast, I do share a lot of like really good information and tips and advice. Yes, I do have enough confidence to say that I am putting out good content, but I do need to kind of like, let you guys know that, I guess I just like turn the heat up a little bit and be like, listen, you're struggling with some of this. Let's just be honest. I'm going to tell you where I've been struggling. So that's why it's called your top toxic traits in relationships. But before we do that, as always, I want to make sure that we've become friends online. So I hope that you can just, go to TikTok, go to Instagram, find me. I am at Sabrina Joy Perozzo. Send me a DM, follow along. Let's be friends. And if you've already followed me but not sent a DM, please send me a message and tell me your favorite fruit. If you don't know, I really like snacks and I like food. And people actually probably don't know a lot about me, like deep personal, like random stuff like that, because I just don't share it online. I try to, but I'm not very good at that. I'm very good at like helping people with their mental health and being totally transparent about mine. But I want to get to know people on those random things, like what's your favorite fruit? Do you like dessert? Do you like pizza? I love pizza. So send me a message. Let's become friends online. If you're on Twitter, I'm also at Real Sabrina Joy. So come say hi, friends. I look forward to becoming friends with you. Also, one other thing, please take a little peekaroo down in the show notes. It'll also tell you how to spell my name if you are looking to connect with me on socials, and also how to sign up for like the weekly newsletter, suggest a topic for the podcast, or even just send me an email if you have any questions, comments, concerns, prayer requests, feedback, whatever you need. And even to watch past episodes of the show, yes, this show, on YouTube. Because again, I am trying to get all caught up. I did the math. If I am able to get 3 or 4 episodes up every single day, then I should be able to kind of like catch up to like where I would be right now in 20 days. And then I would probably be able to like catch up like only a few days after that with whatever else has been recorded. So go enjoy the show over there, and it's easier to share the show with people if there's a YouTube video attached sometimes. Anyway, I digress. So please check all of that out. I look forward to meeting you on socials. And now let's get into our topic, which again is your top toxic traits in relationships. So I definitely was, I've grown a lot. And I think it's important for us to take the time to be like, hey, I've grown, my friend's grown, we're all grown, right? We're all like, hey, we are just doing our best, becoming our best selves. We are just like reaching higher heights. We are taking steps, milestones, progress. It's all here. So I want to make sure that you're doing that too, because I'm trying to do that all the time. Because I do find that if I am pointing out things that I'm doing well, while also simultaneously pointing out things that I'm not doing well, then I'm being honest with myself. I am increasing my self-awareness, but also I'm giving myself a pat on the back and recognizing where I am growing and where I still need to focus and do the work, which is important on both sides. But I was definitely like the dependent one in relationships. And just to be honest, when I say relationships, I was not in that many like romantic relationships, I do feel very blessed and lucky that I met my husband in college, and so we've just been together ever since. I had a serious boyfriend in high school, and that one is the one that caused me the most trauma. And then there was some couple boys that, like cute, I was talking to, didn't really work out. There was a guy that I felt like I fell in love with in college before I met my husband. And I feel like that was just really me getting caught up and feeling like I needed to be with that type of person. If you get my drift, it's like I'm so sorry. I keep hitting my mic. If it's loud, I apologize. But you know how we can just kind of like think that we're supposed to be with a type of person that has maybe like a type of career, and not like in a gold digger way. That's definitely not what I meant, especially since when I did get married, I was the one that was the breadwinner and my husband just stayed home. It's a story for another day. That's been another episode, so listen to those episodes. But no, it wasn't even about that. It was more about like I thought I knew what my life was going to be. You know what I mean? But I didn't, clearly. And that is a reminder that I have every single day. I'm sure that I am not alone in that. But so it's been eye-opening to really like reflect back on this stuff, especially when I talk about these kind of topics and be like, oh my goodness, wow, yeah, like I really thought that I needed to be with that guy. And I thought that I was in love with him. And I think in hindsight, I really wasn't. I was just really infatuated with him. And then another guy came along. You're probably like, wow, Sabrina, you told me you weren't in that many relationships. I wasn't. But because the guy that I just told you about, we weren't in a relationship. It was like really all me. And then me telling him how I felt and him being like, no, girl, no, you ain't for me. And I'm like, okay, great. But I mentioned it because I thought that that was going to be a thing and it wasn't a thing. And then shortly after that, I met a guy from out of town and immediately, like out of town, like not just from like a different city in my state. No, from like 3 states away. 3 states away. So I was in college in Washington and he was from Arkansas. He was just there to visit his friends. And it was so weird. So this might be a part of life that I've never talked to you about, but when I was in college, I wanted to find a way to work in the medical field before I finished my degree because my whole like journey was to become a child psychologist, right? And just like get my master's, get my doctorate, do all those things. But in the meantime, I was like, that'd be really cool if I had a skill. And so I went to one of the local colleges, which was actually like quote unquote local to me, more like 45-minute drive south from me, to learn how to become and train to become an EMT. And I'm sure you're like, Sabrina, I did not sign up. I did not listen to this, click on this show, tap on this show to hear this story. No, it's kind of fun. And we're going to get into it in just a second. But so I was training to become an EMT. And so I would be driving there to train at the college. And I met this guy. It was like, bring your friend to like class day or something like that. I'm not even freaking kidding me. And I didn't really have anyone to bring because the timing and everything else, like there were so many other things happening in my life at that time that I just didn't really have the capacity to figure that out. So they brought him, and I remember sitting outside and us like taking turns doing different things. Like in the classroom, I think it was like preemptive like testing. Was it? It was. We were like practicing some sort of like rescue simulation, right? And so people that weren't involved in it were sitting out in the hallway. And I remember just chatting it up with him, chatting it up. And it became basically what I would consider a summer fling because we were kind of like really into each other, I was spending time at like wherever he was staying. It was a lot. It was a lot happening. A lot of other things happening. And so then nothing sexual, I'm telling you. Well, I mean, there was no sex. Let's just put that's happening. That did not happen. But I spent time with him and then he went home and we talked about maybe like me visiting and maybe like having a long distance relationship, but then we weren't sure. And then we were very much like, let's just like, let me go back to school. School went almost started and let you go back to like whatever life you're having. And then bam, I meet my husband because he shows up to campus. He had already gone to 2 years of community college, so he was only going to be there for 2 years at the school. And we just like clicked and became one. So when I talk about the toxic traits that I've had in relationships, let's bring this back full circle. I'm only referring to probably like the relationship that I'm currently in with my husband and probably like 2 other relationships, romantic ones. However, I want to say that a lot of these are definitely like categorized as romantic relationships. However, I definitely think that they could qualify for like platonic friendships, or even in a way they could carry over to like relationships with friends, platonic friends, family, work, things like that for sure. So just got to keep that in mind. If you're probably like, wow, Sabrina, I haven't had that many relationships either, right? Or any serious ones where it could even get that far. It's okay. It could still qualify for so many different things. And I know I told you a really long story to get to that point, but hey, I bet you enjoyed it. Okay. So yeah, I was definitely the dependent one, right? Biggest toxic trait out of, and like that's on the list. I have 7 to share with you today, so we do need to get into it. But sometimes it still is, and I definitely battled that being dependent in my marriage, and then it twisting into codependency, which is like both people depending on each other in different ways, and then us being able to find our way out of that, because it's not healthy at all. It's not. I stand. That's like a hill I will die on. Only because people have tried to fight me on the internet on how like certain things in codependency aren't bad. No, they're all bad. They're all bad. They're all negative. They're all not beneficial. Okay, we'll come back to that in a different episode. If you want me to talk more about that, please let me know. But I was like a people pleaser, right? I am a recovering people pleaser right now, but I was like hardcore. That was like the golden era for Sabrina to be a people pleaser. So it was easy to lose my identity to become like whatever was needed in the relationship, right? I'm sure that you or someone out there will understand what I'm talking about. You just like throw your whole self away in the trash and you're like, I am here to be with you. Let's see what we can do. How can I be what you need, right? It's almost like a song. It's like a love song. And that's the best way to like end a relationship real quick. So end it, become taken advantage of if the person knows what they are doing, and get further away from understanding who you are, what you are worth, and what you are capable of, right? Because you're throwing yourself away. You're just like, goodbye. I don't need to be who I was, even though the person that you were and the person that you are is the person that they were drawn to. Like, isn't that, let's just take a moment to really consider, like, the craziness of that, right? Even thinking about it right now, obviously, you could tell by my voice, that it is nuts. It's nuts the fact that, like, we get into a relationship and they're attracted to, like, who we are, who we're just being, unless we are being, like, kind of a fake person, really pushing out that people pleaser, like, persona. Okay, that's a different story. But if we're just being us and chilling and they're attracted to that, and then all of a sudden you get into a relationship together and then you decide to throw all of that away, like, why are we throwing away who we are? That's what they wanted, right? Unless it was like a total manipulation game where they were like, oh, I like that person. Let's break them. Again, a different conversation. So, you know, it's so interesting. It just blows my mind. So, yes, I definitely struggle with being dependent on the other person. Ugh, it's a problem. Throwing my whole self away. But yeah, like we just totally lose ourselves. So when we talk about toxic traits with a little bit of like, get down to the nitty gritty here before we jump into the list. Toxic traits, just so we understand, are considered like negative behaviors that can be harmful to one or both of the partners in a relationship. So it's one, whether it's the opposite one, like not you, but the other one, or both people are not benefiting and are like having harm caused to them because of whatever this trait is. And let's just note right now that it cannot just be one trait. No, it can be multiple traits that are causing harm on both people. And that's just sucky. Like, one's enough. And then you just bring them all to the party and you're like, let's just have all the toxicity here. And so having these toxic traits can really like escalate to really unhealthy, I would say like level 12 out of 10, really unhealthy and really unstable relationships that cause like more damage for, again, one person or both partners. Now, let's back up. I know I mentioned like it could just be like one, like the other partner, but it could just be you. You could be the one that's just bringing harm on yourself if the other person does not seem fazed by like whatever the toxic trait is that you are exhibiting, that you are sharing, that you are throwing out there. And that's something to keep in mind too, because if you think that you are doing the most in whatever trait you feel like you identify with most, if you do, and I'm not saying that you have to, but if you do, you really could just be causing harm to yourself, and the other person could just be like oblivious. Oblivious. And I say that because I've had that personal experience, but it's just fact, right? It doesn't necessarily have to always just be the other person if there's only one person harmed within the toxicity that's being brought into the relationship. And just so you know, there are a number of toxic traits. I'm not going to list all of them here today that can be engaged in, but we are going to talk about the ones that I find most important and the ones that I think should be brought up. It is not a conclusive list. I do want you to know that. It's okay. Just so you know, if you, since you can't watch the video of this yet, I was literally doing like finger guns right there. Okay. So if you start to notice yourself or your partner exhibiting these toxic traits, and I definitely want to say yourself, because if you are really working on your self-awareness, you will notice. And if you start like understanding what these toxic traits are and you're like, oh my gosh, that's me. You're like, that's me. I am doing that thing. So when you notice that it's you or your partner exhibiting those things, you need to take the extra step. I implore you to take the extra step of getting help with this. Whether you like speak with someone you trust or speak with like a therapist or a counselor, or you just decide to set personal boundaries so that you don't do it or you don't allow what they're doing to affect you, or you end the relationship. You got to do something. You have to. You got to do something, right? You can't just continue to enable whatever is happening, whether it's yourself or them or both. And, sometimes you will end up doing all of those things. It'll just be like this journey that you take to figure out what should happen, and it will end with ending the relationship. And I just wanted to put all of that up front because we're not really going to dive deep into like what we should do. We're going to talk about the traits. We're going to talk about the traits so we actually understand them. So, I do have a list of toxic traits. I have 7 to share with you today, but before we go into that, let's have our disclaimer. So all the advice and the tips and everything I'm about to share with you and have already shared with you is based on my own thoughts and opinions and research that I have done and my own personal experiences and the experiences of others that I am able to share. If you find that you do not align with what I'm sharing, and that's totally fine, or you find that the list that I'm sharing of toxic traits does not hit, and there's some other ones that you feel like would be better, I encourage you to, talk to a therapist, talk to a counselor, and have that one-on-one time to see what would better align with you figuring out what your personal toxic traits are in relationships. If you don't want to do that, totally fine. Again, I'm not saying that everything I have to share here is fantastic and made for everyone. It's not. So if you don't want to talk to a counselor or a therapist, I encourage you to go on over to our best friend Google and type in like toxic traits in relationships. You will get lots of blogs, you'll get lots of research articles, you'll get videos, you'll get those chat sites, whatever's that where you can ask a question and like community response, whatever's. You'll get lots of stuff. Check all that out, figure out what aligns with you best, and that's totally fine. Totally fine. Okay, let's get into the list. Here is a list of 7 of your top toxic traits in relationships that I'm going to share with you. Number 1, and again, we're just reviewing them so that you can kind of take some time to reflect and see if these are things that are in your relationship, whether with you or your partner, or both. It could be both. The first one is possessiveness. So when your partner tries to control who the other spends time with, right? And let's say that you want to go out with your friend Monica. And again, this is nothing against any Monicas. It's just really the first name that came to my head because I am an avid Friends watcher. So that's like the first name I got. So let's say you want to go out with your friend Monica and you just want to like have a good time. But your partner is like, ooh, no, I don't want you hanging out with Monica for whatever string of reasons. It could be like They are afraid that there's some sort of infidelity that's going to happen. They are afraid of like whatever impact or how they're going to influence you. They just don't want you to go out with Monica because they want you to stay with them. They don't want to share you with anyone, and not even in the cute sense, like in the actual literal sense. And so they're just like, no, I don't think you should go out with that person, right? And they may or may not, depending on the situation, want to suggest someone else for you to spend time with because it's someone that they quote unquote approve of. And so they're like, okay, well, you can actually spend time with Rachel, but not Monica, right? And so that's just an example of like the possessiveness that could be the toxic trait of the partner who's just trying to control who the other one spends time with. Another way to look at it is also like the jealous with like outside people interactions. And so that really does drive home of like, let's say that you and your partner go to a party and you meet Angela and you're just like chatting it up and you're having a good rapport and you'd never met Angela before in your entire life, but you're just chatting with them. And then your partner sees how well you are getting along with Angela. And they're like, oh, no. I can't have anyone getting along with my partner as well as I am. So they come in and they break up this conversation, or they try to like, some people will take their possessiveness so far that they will try to make you look bad so the other person like retreats and like steps off, as opposed to like pulling you away, so that there doesn't seem like there needs to be any sort of like concern or consulting or anything like that, right? It's more of like make that person look bad so that no one else wants to spend time with them and they get all their time and they're not going to have to deal with their own jealous feelings and emotions and behaviors, right? It's just crazies, but not in a bad way. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's interesting how far people will go when they are dealing with being possessive. So think about that. Is that something? And it could even be like smaller doses of, you know, maybe your spouse is like, hey, I'm going to go out and hang out with the boys or the girls or whatever. And you're like, yeah, no, I don't think you should because I really want you to just spend time with me. And maybe you'll turn it into like a cute thing, like, oh, well, I really just wish you would stay here with me. And they're like, oh, that's so cute. Maybe I will, right? But you're really like slowly like pulling away their independence of being able to go out and hang out with other people, which is very, very healthy and should happen as much as possible, because despite the fact that you've promised to be together forever, you still need that separate time. You still need those other people in your life to influence you, encourage you, and be with you, and have support that's not just that person, right? And so it can even be like little things like that where it doesn't feel like possessiveness because it's like put on with like a cute front. But it's there. It could be there. It could be there. So just something to think about, you know? They try to control who the other person spends time with, and they are jealous with outside people interactions. That's possessiveness. Number 2 is lack of communication. Lack of communication. So this is like, I mean, they're all sucky, but this is like one that could really drive someone crazy, I think. So, you know, like tension and resentment are created when there's like no communication. So let's say that your partner is deciding just not to like answer your text, not answer your calls, not answer the door when you go visit them if you're not married, like if you're just dating or you're not living together or whatever. Or, you know, you're trying to like start a conversation with them and they're just like not communicating back. It can like just be really frustrating. Again, tension, resentment can start to like foster in that relationship. And when conversations are shut down because they don't want to talk with like no follow-up time. So there's a difference between like starting a conversation, even if it's a heated one, with your partner and then being like, hey, can we just take a break? Can we have a timeout? And then them being like, can we reconvene like an hour from now or like tomorrow morning or some sort of follow-up time? That's different because maybe they need time to cool off and get their thoughts together and figure out like what they want to say, right? They need time to actually think about what you told them, right? That's different. But that's like one way. But the other way that you definitely is not healthy is you being like, hey, let's talk about like where we want to go to dinner tonight. And they're like, no, I don't want to talk about that. That's not important. Like they deem it like how they categorize it however way they want to. They say it's not important. They're like, no. Or like, no, stop talking about that. Why are you talking about that? Right. And for whatever reasons, maybe because they want to be in control of like the decision or when the decision is made, or the fact that you're even thinking about it, like makes them feel like they're not in charge, whatever the reason, right? So when the conversations are shut down because they don't want to talk about it with no follow-up time, that's a lack of communication. That is a toxic trait. That is not going to help the relationship grow and become stronger together, which is the point of two people coming together. You know what I mean? Also, the refusal to communicate what's going on, like with feelings, concerns, what your plans are, right? So if you're asking the person, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? And they're like, oh, don't worry about it, right? That's a great response. Eye roll. That was sarcasm, just so you know. They're like, oh, don't worry about it, or nothing, right? But you know that they're doing something because maybe you saw a peek on their calendar, maybe you overheard them telling someone, or maybe they told you in the past that they had something planned on that day, and then now they're all of a sudden like just, closing you out, right? Or they're having like some sort of feelings about something. And this is not just like an assumption, which I hate. I hate golden letters, Times Square. I hate assumptions. Hate them. But this is not an assumption. It's more of like, you can tell that they're upset. Like, you can tell that there's something happening, but they choose not to tell you. Toxic. Toxic. It's taking everything inside me not to sing the Britney Spears song so I don't get copyrighted, guys. Everything inside me. But I know that you are thinking it too if you're a Britney fan. So, refusal to communicate what's going on, feelings, concerns, things like that. Terrible. It sucks. It's like, oh my gosh, why are we together if you don't want to tell me what's happening? So lack of communication, that's a terrible, toxic trait. Number 3, blaming. Blaming. So the partner refuses to take responsibility for their actions. What else would we call that, friends? Victim mentality, for sure. You don't want to take responsibility for your actions. So you end up like blaming whatever happened, like blames everything that goes wrong on their partner. So if all of a sudden someone was rude to them at dinner, they're like, oh my gosh, this is your fault because you picked this restaurant, or you set the waiter off, or you blah, 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 blah. Like whatever ridiculous excuse that they come up with. They cannot possibly be responsible for anything bad happening and anything like going wrong, that they have to pass the blame onto you or even onto someone else. Because like just outside of just like the bubble of the relationship, this can like, be a little bit more global in your guys' like close circles. So a good example is to being like, let's say that you went to dinner with you and like your partner and your friends, and the waiter brings out their dinner wrong. And so maybe they've already taken enough time to blame you for other things. They're deciding to pass the blame, or they'll do a double blaming, like a double blocking, but a double blaming of being like, oh my gosh, you and your friend picked this restaurant and that's why I got the wrong entree. Or you and your friend, this is your fault for picking this place to go and that's why it costs so much. Or that's why this, that, and the other. I mean, the cost so much thing, I guess, is true because like if you pick a restaurant, generally you know how much it's going to cost. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. So yeah, they'll like want to not take any responsibility for anything, blame the partner for everything. And then sometimes that can extend to other people in their life if they so choose to just blame everyone for everything. And it's such a toxic trait because if they're not willing to take responsibility, then think about like how else they could be a victim of not wanting to make any like positive changes in their life that actually would be good, and not wanting to actually be honest and vulnerable about what they're going through. Like that does not seem like a good fit for anyone being in a relationship. So that toxic trait is blaming. Number 4, I'm not even going to talk a lot about, barely. We're going to probably be here for like 60 seconds. But I needed to put it on the list because I almost thought about not putting it on the list and then just like mentioning it, but I was like, absolutely not. Also, these aren't in any particular order, but the ones that are on the list are crucial, integral for you to know. So number 4 is verbal or physical abuse. Verbal or physical abuse. So often when there is verbal and or, because there could be both or just one or the other. They are used for control and intimidation, which is not cool, right? Obviously. But we don't need to talk about a lot about it because people understand that these are toxic traits. These are harmful traits. These are awful. These are things that I really hope that, and I know it's easier said than done, despite how terrible it is. But I hope that if these things are happening to you in a relationship, that you say goodbye as quick as you can, that you get out there, that you have someone help you figure out how to get away from that person because it's awful. And I don't want anyone to go through that. That's terrible. Absolutely terrible. And you might try to, reason away that, oh, it's because they have a bad day or they're going through a hard time in their life or blah, 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 whatever excuse. No, don't let the excuses allow you to continue to get hurt just for the sake of them being a jerk. It's not fair to you. So, verbal and physical abuse is often used for control and intimidation, especially if all the other toxic traits that they're probably likely using in the relationship aren't quite working as well as they would like. This is like that extra bully push of okay, well, let's get serious, which is just terrible. So, verbal and or physical abuse. Number 5, disrespect. So this is an easy one, and you might not think, oh, this is a toxic trait. It is. Make no mistake. So disregarding the partner's feelings, belittling them, making them feel inferior. It's on purpose, being condescending, right? And not realizing it. It's one thing to be naive to, acting a certain way. It's another to be doing it on purpose because you have a mission to disrespect them and make them feel bad and make them feel smaller than you so that you do have that control and intimidation over them. It's another way to do that, right? So yeah, you're disregarding their feelings. You're like, oh no, if the partner is like, oh, I'm feeling really uncomfortable with this. And they're like, oh no, you're not, you'll be fine. That whole you'll be fine. Or if they're like, oh, I'm really sad and disappointed that I didn't get to see my parents for Christmas this year. And they're like, oh no, it's fine. Or they saw you for so many years growing up. They don't need you now. Or whatever crap they make up, right? Or belittling you and telling you that you shouldn't worry about things, or the things that you worry about are stupid or unhelpful, or that the work that you do is nothing, it means nothing, and that how you contribute in the world is just not good enough, which is not true. I pause because it's painful. It's painful to really think and know that there are people that are dealing with this on a regular basis, and they just allow it to happen because they don't know what to do. They don't know how to get out of it. They don't see it for what it is. For reals, I don't mean this as a joke. They might have Stockholm syndrome, where they're just so used to it and they're just buying into the whole thing. And or something else is being used against them, and so they have to put up with all this crap. So yeah, disregarding feelings, belittling them, and making them feel inferior. That's that toxic trait. Number 6, the one that I am most familiar with, is dependent. So this would be when one partner, is struggling. Sorry, let's back up. I have 2 thoughts that are crossing paths right now. So when you're dependent, it's it's one partner dependent on the other. But if both are dependent on each other for different reasons or the same, whatever, that's codependency. That's different. So dependent is just one person dependent on the other. And often, when someone struggles with their own mental health, they're having that hard struggle, they can cling to their partner for emotional and or financial support, and this creates this really unhealthy balance. And again, when we're trying to achieve balance in our life, in our career, in our relationships, and whatever, it's not always going to be this perfect seesaw teeter-totter kind of situation, but it'll be as close as it can be. But when it's unbalanced like that, where someone is totally just clinging to the other person, it is very unbalanced. It's literally someone is sitting at the top of the seesaw while the other person's weighing it all the way down, or opposite. And so it's important to realize that I was like that a lot. It was mostly emotional, not financial. at all. Only because I definitely, back then my pride would not allow me to be financially dependent on someone. I needed to like make life happen for myself. But, so when, what am I even trying to say? So emotionally, I was dependent on other people. Again, I would just like, throw myself away, who I was supposed to be. And like if they were feeling sad, I would need to feel sad. If they were feeling happy, I would need to feel happy no matter like what I was going through. I was trying to be like their shadow. And that's going to be really overwhelming and exhausting for the partner because not only are they just trying to like be there for you, but also like whatever they are going through, they are expecting like full on, full board support. And that happened to me recently where I just needed I wanted my husband to be all the support that I needed for like a mental health struggle that I was going through. And it's like so unhealthy and it was very unbalanced and very overwhelming actually and exhausting for him. And it just kind of like took him out and he was just like, you know what? Lucky, like not lucky. Well, I feel like the whole situation coming together how it did was lucky, but and a blessing. But I was like really proud of him to just be like in hindsight, like in the moment I was really upset. Just to be honest. But in hindsight, I was really proud of him to just like exude those boundaries and be like, listen, I can't. This is too much for me. And I was just like, oh. And thinking about it now, I'm like, yeah, that was too much. It was way too much. Way too much. It could just become way too much for someone to handle because it's already enough for us to handle our own emotions. And if we are in a relationship where we have children, so we're trying to help them handle theirs, then if it's unbalanced in other relationships we have, like with our family, with our friends, and at work and whatever, it can just become way too much. You're just like, feel like you're being weighted down at the bottom of like a 20-foot pool or something like that. It's awful. And so the inability for them to function without their partner is also a big part of being dependent. And so like if they're ever away from that person, it could lead to like anxiety or desperation. And that is like a really, really big concern with this toxic trait because they feel like they have to be with them all the time. And if they're not, then they're like worth nothing or they're alone or they're afraid that like, I don't know, like they'll just like disappear into thin air and something bad will happen or something bad will happen to the other person. And they're concerned about that. And they're like, I need to be with them. And so, and then the last part of like, being dependent also, again, what I was talking about before is the lack of autonomy that happens when someone loses their independence. They just like, they are so consumed with being dependent on the other person for how they should feel, how should they act, how should they like live their life or whatever, that they lose their independence and who they are and are just like way too reliant on that partner, especially if both emotionally and financially those things are combined. And so they're dependent on the partner to make all the money and take care of them mentally and emotionally and always be there for them, be their best friend in their whole support system. Gosh, it really just like opens my eyes for like how I kind of did that to my husband. And it's just like, ugh, I'm glad we figured it out. But yeah, it's just too much. But yeah, like when you are caught up in being dependent, you lose your identity because you're just trying to be there for them, do everything for them. It's just like that top tier, pink Cadillac, people pleaser type of situation. So dependent. Someone, they just really have this unbalanced need to lean on their partner. Okay, so let's go on to the last one, which is number 7, emotional manipulation. Emotional manipulation. So this one, there is a myriad of examples that could be shared, but I decided to share the ones that I think are really interesting. Not all the ones that I wanted to share, but I didn't want the show to drag on forever, just to be honest. I would feel bad about that. But I did want to mention 3 that I thought were really important. So for emotional manipulation, which would be any way for the person just to use the emotions of the other partner to get what they want or get control or get them in a mental situation to just act how they please, right? It's like playing like a puppeteer, basically. So the first one that I want to mention as an example of emotional manipulation is one that a lot of us know and hear about often is gaslighting. And if you don't know what that is, because there are people in life that don't know what that is, and that's fine. It's like trying to get your partner to think that they're crazy and to doubt their own like thoughts, their own feelings, their own actual like real life personal experiences in life, like things that they've actually done, right? Like just recalling memories of like how things went down, how things happened, that you went to this, that, and the other. Like it goes that far. And to push that partner to feel like they are thinking outside of reality. Like, again, pushing the crazy talk. So, if someone were trying to gaslight someone, like, let's say the partner's like, oh, but I remember that you were at that party talking to that girl, and it just seemed really inappropriate. And then the other partner that would like institute the gaslighting would be like, what are you talking about? I wasn't talking to anyone at that party. And really trying to like push the narrative that they weren't talking to that person, that the other person just totally made it up, that they can't believe, also like, throwing in some of the like the guilt of being like, hey, I can't believe that you would think that I would talk to someone else inappropriately and think that I would ever do anything to hurt you, really laying it on thick. And and then really like even pushing for like, I think that you should like apologize to me and feel bad to me, and really just turning the tables on the other person while gaslighting them and making them think that their own like memories and thoughts and feelings are totally wrong and not aligned with what they can recall and what they can remember. It is awful. It is awful because I feel like there's a point where you can start to question yourself if you're being questioned enough. It's on a small, like silly scale to compare it to. It's like if you say or read a word enough times, then it starts to like lose the feeling of like, is this the word? Is this how it's spelled? Is this how you really say it? That weird, awkward feeling. And that is like kind of like gaslighting on like a times a million scale. Basically how I can think about it. The next one is guilt tripping. Speaking of guilt, guilt tripping. So like pouring on the guilt when something doesn't go their way or trying to make the other feel bad for standing up for themselves. So again, like if the partner is like, oh, because they sent someone out to like go pick up ice cream or something, and they didn't have the flavor of ice cream that person wanted, and they're just like, oh my gosh, it's just so bad and unfortunate that they didn't have the flavor that I wanted, but they really had the flavor that you wanted, and that just feels so unfair, but I understand that they didn't have it, and there's nothing you can do, and blah, 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 and like really pushing them to feel bad for something they had no control over. That's the thing that drives me crazy is like when you're trying to guilt trip someone, you are really like pushing them to feel guilty about often, not always, but often, things that they didn't have control of. You can't control what ice cream flavors Baskin Robbins has. They either have it or they don't. That's what it is. Yes, I like Baskin Robbins. I do like Cold Stone too. Listen, Baskin Robbins is just so classic. I miss it. I miss it so much. I can't eat like lots of dairy right now, so that's why I miss it. Anyway, yeah, pouring on the guilt when something doesn't go their way, or trying to make the other person feel bad for standing up for themselves. So if someone, let's say one partner comes to the other and it's like, hey, I did not appreciate the way that you spoke to me in front of our friends the other night. I felt really disrespected. And so the other partner would be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you would say that I was doing that. Like I was not doing that. And the other person's like, yes, you were. I just felt really disrespectful that you did that. And they're like, I can't believe you're bringing this up. And I can't believe you're bringing it up like after I've had a hard day, or it's my birthday, or after you already like told me how you didn't like this, that, and the other. And like, you know what I mean? Like really like guilt tripping them for standing up for themselves and like, oh, I can't believe you're bringing this up when I treat you so well, or I pay all the bills, or I just bought you a present like 2 months ago. Like, you know what I mean? Just like all these excuses, wrapping everything up, making everything feel like it's like swirling in a tornado of excuses. And it could just be so overwhelming that the other person just gives up and it's like, oh, okay, you're right. Well, they're not. They weren't. They're just trying to guilt trip you because they don't want to take any responsibility. Emotional manipulation. Okay, one more. And then we'll tie it up Have you done? Love bombing. Interesting, right? I'm trying to think. I did experience this with my high school boyfriend, which I know like may not qualify as anything that people care about, but I did. So pouring on the love bombing is pouring on the love and appreciation and attention in an attempt to get the other one to do what they want and feel so overwhelmed with the attention and gestures that they are caught off guard to comply with whatever requests come up. So a good example would be like maybe they don't necessarily always give you attention or call you, and then all of a sudden they're calling you and they're showing up at your doorstep and they're sending you flowers and they're serenading you outside their window with their boombox. And it's just like, I love you. You're amazing. You're the most beautiful thing ever. And then you're like so overwhelmed because this doesn't normally happen, but that you're just so grateful. You feel like you need to be grateful and feel like, oh my gosh, it's so great that they're finally treating you the way that you would want. And then bam, they ask you for something. And they're like, hey, so I love you so much. And I'm like late on rent. And I was wondering if you could like help me out with that because, we're so in love and we're so close and together and you're amazing. And you're just like, yeah, of course, right? Because it's in the hopes, it's like in the other person's mind, they're like hoping that, okay, if they say yes, that this thing will happen again. And likely it won't. Or maybe the other partner will keep it up for just a little bit until they get what they need and then they'll cut it off. And then it'll go back to like however the relationship normally is. And then it'll make its return the next time the person like really needs something and just needs to go over the top with the love and attention to get what they want. Again, control, intimidation, emotional manipulation. Wow, that kind of rhymed. So that's it. That's it. That's all 7 of your top toxic traits in relationships. The list that I want to share with you that I think that everyone will benefit from. Really take some time to reflect if you feel like you struggle with any of those, if you feel like your partner does, and what you should do. Should you talk to your partner about it if it's their thing, or even if it's your thing, should you talk to them about it? Figure out what you need to do. Bring it to light. I think you should be vulnerable and honest. That's how I would do it. That's how I do it. And that's how I did do it with my husband. Like, was really honest and open. Told him exactly. I was like, yeah, I was out of line. That was ridiculous. No, that was too much. And I just think it makes the relationship between the two people stronger and better. And that's absolutely fantastic. So anyway, but do what you need to do. That would be best. But that's it. So thank you so much for listening to the Real Positive Girl podcast. Again, with me, Sabrina. I please ask you to share this show with anyone that you think would benefit from it. Don't forget to check the show notes so you can come say hi to me and become friends online. Sign up for the weekly newsletter, send me an email, suggest a topic, and also check out all the current past episodes of the Real Positive Girl podcast that is currently on the YouTube channel. Again, the video versions of it, not just an audiogram, the video versions of it. You can see my face. So, but that's it. So until next time, have a good one, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.